Hello everyone, my name is Ryan coming to you from the DL Academy, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some useful slash cool Python tricks. Alright, so without wasting any more time, let's get started. So let's just start a Python shell. So go on your search bar and type Python. All right, so it opened our Python shell. All right, so the first interesting trick that we're going to be taking a look at is the zip function. So let's create two lists. Let's say list one and make it equal to a bunch of random numbers. All right, so this is our first list. And let's create a second list called list two and make it equal to other random numbers. All right, so let's say 9 and here 1. All right, so let's say we type in zip and then here list 1 comma list 2. So what this does is it creates a zip object. All right, so let me just copy and save it into a variable, call it zip list. All right, so zip list is going to be equal to zip of list 1 comma list 2. And what this does is it creates a list of iterables containing containing all of the list 1 and 2 together. For example, it matches this 3 with this 45, and this is our first iterable. So it's a tuple containing 3 comma 45 and then 4 comma 2 and then 12 comma 9 and 0 comma 1. So it's going to be like this. It's going to be something like 3 comma 45. That's the first iterable. So that's the first element in the list, and then it's going to be 4 comma 2, and then it's going to be 12 comma 9, and so on and so forth. And let's just loop through the list just to take a look at it. So for every iterable in zip list, let's just print our iterable object. So iterable, E-T-R-A-B. Let's go. And as you see, basically it just matched every element together and created a new tuple containing containing the matching or corresponding elements to each list. So this is the first cool trick. It's called the zip. That's the function. Now another cool function is the max function. So let's say we have a list and we want to know what's the greatest number in the list. We just type max, and if we type in list 1 here, it's just going to return 12, because if we take a look at list 1, 12 is the biggest number. And same thing goes for min. So if we want the minimum number of list 2, it should return a 1, because 1 is the minimum of all the lists. It also works for strings, but it's a bit different. For integers, it just returns the greatest value. All right, so let's say we have a list. All right, so list 1, and we want to convert it to another format. Let's say we want to convert it from list to a tuple. All we have to do is type in tuple and in parentheses input list 1, and this will automatically convert it into a tuple. As you can see, now instead of being into a list format, it became a tuple. So if we want to convert it back into a list, we can just type in list and list of well, we had to save it into a variable first. So let's say t equals tuple of list 1. Then t is the tuple, and if we want to convert it back into a list, we can type in list of t, and this is going to convert it back into a list. All right. Now let's say we have t, which is a tuple, and let's say we want to access each value individually. What we can do is, for example, create a list A, B, C, D, and make it equal to t. And what this does is A is going to be equal to 3, B is going to be equal to 4, C is going to be equal to 12, and D is going to be equal to 0. So if I print A is going to be 3, B is going to be 4, C is going to be 12, and so on and so forth. So basically, each by separating them by a comma, they take the value of the corresponding number here. So A is going to be the first, so it's going to be 3. B is going to be the second, it's going to be 4, and so on and so forth. Let's say we only wanted to retrieve the 12. We could put, for example, underscore, and then create a variable, call it e, and then underscore is going to be equal to t. And then we can access e, and e is going to be equal to 12. And the underscore just means that we don't really care about that value. This is useful, for example, if we want to loop through a tuple. All right, so let's say for z underscore. Let's print z. And now, as you can see, what it did is it just printed the second element in each tuple. So it printed 45291. And when we did it earlier, as you can see, 45291, they're just the second element. So it just ignored the first element because we put the underscore. All right, so another cool trick is, for example, we could do list one. So if you remember, we had list one. And as you can see, list one, and then we could do list one dot index, and then we pick any of these numbers. So for example, if we put in the 12, we want the index where we find the number 12, and this should return a 2 because 12 is at index 2. So here 3 is at index 0, 4 is at index 1, and 12 is at index 2. For example, if we do list 1 dot index, and then here 0, it should return a 3 because the 0 is at index 3. So this is the index function. All right, so one last cool trick before we close up on this video, and it's the enumerate function. So if you remember, when we loop through a list, there's two ways of doing it. We could do for every element in our list, so list 1, and then now we have access to each element. So element is going to be equal to 3, 4, 12, 0, and so on, but we do not have the index. You could use the index function that we just saw, but for example, if there's a 12 that may repeat itself somewhere, we might have some trouble. The other longer way is for, say, for I in range of list, length of list, and that's the long way of doing it to make sure that we keep track of the index I and we have access to the list. And now we can access, for example, list index I. So this is the way that we taught in our Python course, which you can find on our website, thedlacademy.com. We also have a machine learning course if you're interested. But anyway, there is a shorter and more simpler way of doing this, and this is by using the enumerate function. So we're going to be say for every element and list. All right. So what this does is it splits the list into a index and an iterable. So now instead of just typing in element, we just type in I, comma, and then element. So we have the position, which is I, and the element. So it gives us the best of both worlds. And we could print, for example, we print I. And then here we're going to say I is at, no, we say element, lm, comma, and then is at index, and then another comma, I. So if we print this, of course I made a mistake because I typed in list, but we have to specify, so we're going to be using list 1, and now it should work. Indenting problems, of course, never that easy. And as you can see, we loop through that list. So 3 is at index 0. So we have the actual value and the index. 4 is at index 0. So basically what this does, what enumerate does, it takes the list and returns a tuple that contains the index and the actual iterable element uh, inside the list. All right, so that's it for today's quick Python cool slash useful tricks that you can be using on your everyday programming life. Make sure to check us out at thedlacademy.com for more exclusive and free content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.